Hi everyone, it's Brian here, just popping online for a very quick video. I'm actually still at home at my parents' for Christmas and New Year, and I hope that you're all having a good Christmas break, if indeed you are having one. A number of you will have noticed that I posted in a couple of the Facebook groups that I'm in my efforts to remove the borders from the Spiral Tarot, which is actually a deck that I got for myself before Christmas and took home with me, thinking that I would do some work on it and certainly some studying of it as well. And yesterday I took the plunge and started to remove the borders. I won't go into a great deal of detail about how I did that, because there's lots of other YouTube videos that help to describe that. Suffice to say that I used a paper trimmer rather than scissors and found that that worked quite well, and I used a corner cutter, a 5mm corner cutter, to round the edges of the deck. But before I go into the detail of how all of that went and what the results were, perhaps I should say something about why I did that. A number of people in fact have asked me, why on earth have you started trimming your tarot deck? Well, the reason was, I must admit, I will confess that I'm one of these people who for a long time wondered why people adjusted their tarot decks in this way. I always kind of thought, well, if you don't like the borders on your deck, find another deck. Until I came across the Spiral Tarot. And it's one of these tarot decks that I was aware of, had seen several times, but had never really properly registered. And I think that's partly because of the way that the deck is packaged and the way that it looks with the borders. And then I noticed, I think it was Katey Flowers' video actually about the Spiral Tarot, a review that she did, which really made me look more closely at the deck. And I realised that I had seen some of the tarot deck, the Spiral Tarot images, a couple of times online and had been really drawn to them without realising they were from the Spiral Tarot. And the reason for that is the borders. Now, here is the box of the Spiral Tarot, and on the box, on this side of the box, we have the Temperance card, and this looks all right. And actually, I think probably if this is what the deck looked like, if the card looked like this, with a dark purple border and a thin white line around the image, that would be kind of acceptable. I think it probably would still detract a bit from the lovely artwork, because the artwork in this deck is really superb. Unfortunately, this isn't the kind of look that they've gone for in this deck. Instead of the dark purple and the white border, the cards actually have, let's just turn around, this very strange, fake, metallic pink border. Let me just move it so you can see it without the light shining. And a kind of red and white inner border, and the name of the card in white on this red background. You'll notice, by the way, on the cover of the box there is a mistake. The strength card is listed as 13. I think this is partly because the packaging of this deck in some ways sounds the death knell for it, because to my mind these images just get terribly lost because of the way that they are bordered. The strength card actually isn't too bad, because there's pink in the card, there's a bit of red in the line, so at least that's been picked up by the colours around about. But in most cards, this border, I think, just looks terrible. They're quite small cards as well. They're very detailed images, very intricate artwork, but very small cards. So I think it's more important than ever, because of that, to make sure that they properly stand out. So I'll show you a little bit about what the cards look like in a second, but just by way of background, the deck's author, Kay Stevenson, does include a little card inside the deck which explains the background to the Spiral Tarot, and in that she says, "The Spiral Tarot deck is dedicated to my Celtic grandmother, who used to read playing cards. When I was a child, it was she who guided me through a perilous journey. She instilled in me the philosophy that life is like that ancient symbol, the spiral. Each phase of life has a beginning, runs its course, and comes to an end before moving to the next cycle. The ultimate aspiration is to be like the tarot fool, not allowing past experiences to hold us back, but embracing the new cycle with open heart and mind, each time with a little more wisdom." And there is a small little white book that comes with the deck. It's got pretty good information in there about each of the cards. One of the nice things that she does is she links each of the numbered cards to the equivalent numbered arcanum. So, for example, all the threes, she relates to the Empress, etc., etc., which is quite a nice thing to look into. There is a proper guidebook that goes with this deck, and I have got that on order. It's winging its way to me from Australia as we speak. I'm hoping actually that it'll be waiting for me when I get home. And that goes into the symbolism and the mythology in the card. The cards are very rich in symbolism and mythology. You can see just even from this box a number of different symbols, as well as there's the astrological symbols, the elemental symbols, alchemical, the Hebrew letters, etc., tree of life, glyph, various different symbols within the card, images themselves, and superimposed on the cards. So there's quite a lot, I think, to dig into. Now to the trimming and what the trimming resulted in. First of all, to say what doesn't work very well once you've trimmed the cards is the card backs. You'll see what originally these looked like were the double spiral within a gold rectangle and then a thin blue border around those. And when you trim the images correctly, you end up with a slightly lopsided back. That doesn't bother me particularly, and actually one of the things I'm likely to do fairly soon is to edge these cards in gold, and I think that will take care of some of this, because with some of the bleed over on this side, I think what will happen is there will be a gold edge around these cards, and you won't really notice this lopsided element. But as I say, that doesn't bother me. So I'm going to show you what the cards look like once they have been trimmed. Now, they aren't in any order, they're all mixed up. I haven't taken the time to move them out or to put them back in order, but that's fine, I think, for the purposes of this video. So bearing in mind, this is what they looked like before, and this is what they look like once they are trimmed. I'll just move this out of the way so you can see. So there we have the star. I've kept the number on because it's part of the image, and when you take the border off, the number remains, which is really helpful. I find that I don't need the names of the cards in order to know what they are, including for the minors. So here we are, the Five of Rods. Very obvious what that is. That's the beautiful Sun card. I just think these images absolutely pop once you've got the borders off. They are like little works of art in their own right. I haven't got room in camera range to keep them all in sight, so I'll just do these bit by bit. There's just such lovely intricate images. Here we have the moon, the three elements of the moon, and you'll see that I'm not the neatest of trimmers. It was my first time trimming a deck, and some of the cards actually have got slightly lopsided edges, very slightly, but I'm not too bothered about that. I'm surprised actually that it didn't bother me very much. I thought I would make a single mistake and then have to redo the whole thing, buy another deck and then have to start again. But I actually don't feel that way. I might well get another one of these and try and do it a bit more neatly, but at the moment I'm happy with how this has turned out. There we have the Eight of Cups. One of the things that I've heard people online say, and maybe even complain about to some extent, is that the quality of the art in the majors and the quality of the art in the minors seems to be a bit different. So the majors seem to be a bit more complex, a bit more rich in imagery, and the minors seem to be a bit simpler. But I actually think that works really well. Here we have a court card, and again with the element very clearly marked. So this is fire, this is the wand, the Knight of Wands. It's very clear what these cards are, yeah, so I think the difference between the artwork doesn't bother me, because for me the major arcana should be more complex, they should be more detailed, they should be more ethereal, because they are dealing with more fundamental archetypal forces, and the other cards are a bit more about the mundane side of life. That's my take anyway. And also I actually don't think that the art is as different as people suggest. King of Cups, Three of Swords, Justice. Now the images of the minors are all, and this is one of the other things that's pointed out, have a kind of Edwardian feel to them, and that goes back to the deck's creators grandmother. These cards were based on and inspired by her, and she grew up in Edwardian times. And the deck creator I saw on, I think it was on the Eclectic Forum, pointed out something that I had already noticed, which was that the minors relate to the era that her grandmother grew up in. The majors relate to much more deep psychological, mythological forces that relate to her Celtic upbringing and also to the symbology and mythology of the tarot. I'm really looking forward to getting the book so I can learn a bit more about what the images mean to her. Moving along, you'll see again that that card probably was trimmed a bit too assiduously at the top. So if you're doing this deck, I'm sure if you have a steadier hand than me, you could do a better job. But even with this slightly amateurish approach to deck modification, it works really well with these cards. They just stand out so beautifully, and the images are so powerful. In fact, let me just let you see that one on its own. It's just amazing. Let me zoom in. The detail and the depth in these cards, tremendous. There's the devil with the reflection. Somebody looking not very happy to be seeing the devil in themselves, or themselves in the devil, one way or the other. Now there's the strength card. Now here's a good comparison. So you have this option of strength surrounded by the slightly garish border, or you can have this version of strength where the image just pops out and really, really works. So let's move on and show you some more. High Priestess, Four of Pentacles. I think I'll do them in pairs because it's kind of a bit easier for you to see this way. Now that card I think is so powerful. When this was, this is the Ace of Swords, when this was trapped in this border, some of the power of this card just got lost. You know, the border just took away from it. But on its own, you really, really see, I think, what the deck creator wanted you to see. Six of Cups. I hope you can hear me properly. I haven't attached the microphone because I just have a moment to myself to make this video, and wanted to quickly show you the results. There we have the Fool and the Page of Cups. You could, of course, if you wanted to, write the name of the majors perhaps in gold or in some other colour at the bottom of these cards. That would be absolutely fine. For the minors, you could, if you wanted, put the elemental symbol. So here we have wands, so you could put the upwards triangle for fire. That would be a good way. If you weren't particularly confident about recognising the cards, you could do that. But I don't find that it's necessary because they are just so obvious to me. Eight of Pentacles. There's the World card. They're amazing, amazing works of art. This card is a good example of the kind of complexity, well, let me zoom in, the complexity of the image. Now, there's a lot going on in this card, and I think probably the book will say a great deal about what some of these different symbols in the background mean and what they relate to. So I'm really looking forward to digging into that. There we have the King of Pentacles. I'm actually going to set him aside for a moment because I want to draw your attention to something in relation to him when another card comes up. Wow, Justice. Beautiful. There's the Lovers. The Court cards are very powerful here, I think. They have real character in their faces. Queen of Swords. Here we have the Tower. More of the Pips. Simpler art, but I think still very, very beautiful. Very striking. Great use of colour. The aces are great too. Here we have the Ace of Wands. And here's a card that in most decks I have to confess is probably one of my least favourite cards, and it's a terrible thing to say really, but it's one of the cards that just doesn't really excite me. But in this deck, I think it looks amazing, and that is the Hierophant. And in this deck, it's Chiron. Chiron is the Hierophant. You see this, the astrological symbol there for Chiron, relationship to Virgo, and various other images in there that relate to Chiron. Just a lovely, lovely image. There we have the Page of Pentacles. I think Princess of Pentacles. I can't remember which way around it is, but two of the suits, obviously the masculine suits, have princes for pages, and the feminine suits, I believe, or it might be the other way around, have princes for pages. That's probably the other way around, isn't it? Because this would be this is the Princess of Pentacles. The Death card, which is Hecate. Ten of Swords. Just love this deck. It's one of these decks that just really has spoken to me. As soon as I saw the images, I thought, yes, this is absolutely the deck for me. And just freeing it from the borders, it was amazing to watch the process. As I removed the borders, things would pop out of the cards that I hadn't noticed before, and it was almost as though the process of removing the borders in itself was a form of engagement with the deck. Another slightly over trimmed top, but you know what, it just doesn't bother me. The artwork is just so stunning, it's not detracting at all from my enjoyment of the deck. And once I'm a bit more practiced at the art of tarot deck modification, I might redo it. I might get another copy. It is still readily available, although I'm seriously considering starting a campaign to get US Games to release this again, but this time without borders and a larger size. These are quite small now, but strangely enough, when you remove the borders, the cards themselves, although they obviously become smaller, it's almost as though the images become larger because they're just freed from the boundaries of the borders. Been going. This card reminds me of a work of art, but I don't know if I'm imagining that, but I'm convinced that there is a particular painting that this particular card is based on. If anyone knows, please do comment below and let me know. If it is the case, I'm sure I'll kick myself as soon as you point it out to me. Queen of Wands. I mentioned I'm looking for a particular court card, and when I get there I will show you, because I've set aside the King of Pentacles because I want to show you. Here we are. So let me just show you this. This is a good example of how well thought out the court cards are, I think. So here we have the Knight of Pentacles, and here we have the King of Pentacles, and I think you can see, look at the faces. There is no doubt that these are father and son. The faces are similar, they're not identical, but they're similar. So many tarot decks I find have almost identical faces on the court cards, and indeed in many of the cards, but this one doesn't. Obviously the artist has made a real effort to make some differentiation between faces, but some similarities within families. So here we are. And here's one of my very favourite cards in the deck. I think this is so powerful, and actually I find it really moving. This is the Six of Swords, a bit different than the usual picture of the Six of Swords, where we usually see two hooded figures in the boat. Here we have a hooded figure being guided by an angel. And again, this card just looks so much better without that pink border around it. Two of Cups. Ace of Pentacles. I'm moving kind of a bit more swiftly along now. Wonderful images. Another one of the pages, the Page of Cups. Pages all obviously all very, very young in this deck. Wheel of Fortune. Lovely dramatic Wheel of Fortune. And again, you know, here we have the Queen of Pentacles. Again, a very unique face. I wouldn't be surprised actually if the court cards in here are modelled on real people that the deck creator knows, because they all just seem to be so distinctive in their look. And here actually is one of my favourite cards. It's just so cute and whimsical. We have the Page of Pentacles, or Princess of Pentacles, with a pet dragon, which is just brilliant. Of course, fits so well with fire. At least I'm presuming that's a dragon. There's the Five of Pentacles, a very powerful card, and really, again, very moving in this deck. I think it really conveys the meaning of the card very, very well. And Temperance, really beautiful. Again, you know, just by comparison, here is Temperance on the deck box with the slightly less offensive dark purple background. But even though that would be better than the pink, I think Borderless is better still. Another Knight, Three of Cups. We have the Emperor, Ten of Pentacles, Ace of Cups. My deck is in danger of toppling over into view of the camera here, so let me just move that. Hermit, very striking, beautiful hermit, female hermit, so unusual, but I think works really well. And the association here, as well as being with Virgo, is with Vesta, the asteroid. So really, really nice. And Ten of Pentacles and Nine of Swords. So recognisable Rider-Waite based imagery, but very uniquely rendered. I think this works really, really well. And funnily enough, or perhaps not so funnily enough, quite fittingly, the last card in the pile is the Empress. And the Empress, as many of you who follow this channel will know, is a very important card to me. In fact, I've made a whole video on the Empress and why she is so important to me, and I'll link that below. But that's the Spiral Tarot. That's the deck I wanted to show you, and I hope that that has been a useful overview for you. If you have got this deck and are thinking about trimming it, or if you are thinking about getting the deck, I really, really encourage you to go ahead and trim it. It just makes such a difference, and it's such a powerful deck, and when it's free of the borders, that power really, really shines through. So thank you for listening and watching, and I'll look forward to speaking with you again very soon.